My name is Thorsten Overgaard. I'm a Danish photographer. I travel the world taking photographs and teaching photography. Today I am going to review the Leica M10 again. Before I get into it, below the video there is free downloads. You simply put in your email and the code and then it's free. One of them is an ebook I wrote about iconic photographs and iconic photographers who took them, and I also write about how I photograph and why I photograph. And then there's also a free download, same system, you put in the code and your email and you have it in a few minutes. So there's free downloads of presets and styles for Capture One and Lightroom. And that's the handful of color and black and white presets and styles that I use for my editing to get the exact black and white tones from a color camera. And it kind of gives you the Leica look from any file, no matter if you have Nikon, Sony, Fuji or whatever. Click below the video, you can pause the video to do it now so you don't forget it, or else do it after. There's a very good reason to review the Leica M10. It's probably the best deal in digital Leica cameras, and I'll get back to that. I guess when you've seen the video here, you have an idea why I think that is the best deal. The first Leica M10 came out in 2017, so now you could say I've used the camera, the different models of the camera, since then a lot all over the world. So I really know what I'm talking about, and I know that this is a very reliable camera. Some would say that Leica got into digital cameras quite late, and that is actually not true. They made the first digital camera in 1996, and it was 75 megapixels. It was a studio camera, it's so-called scan cameras. It wasn't like a handheld camera, it was meant to put on a tripod, and you would make high-resolution scans of product photos like cars and whatever products you needed to use in advertising. The real evolution, you could say, was when Leica made the first Leica M8 in 2006, and that was the first digital M. And the M camera has been around since 1925. So I'll tell this story a little bit like if you've never heard about Leica before, or you wonder what is the big deal about Leica. So what is so great about Leica? Well, one thing is that it's mirrorless. For whatever that's worth, and you can say Leica have actually made mirrorless cameras since 1925. The first Leica looked like this, felt like this, and it wasn't digital, of course, it was film. But the reason it's mirrorless is because you have in here the sensor. There is no mirror, and if you wonder what does mirrorless mean, well, if you skipped this generation of cameras, this is the SL, is from the 60s, doesn't matter, there's been a lot of mirror cameras, so-called SLR, and when they became digital, it became DSLR. And what it means that it has a mirror is that there's a mirror here, so if you imagine that the light comes in here through the lens, and it goes via the mirror up here, and it gets reflected, so I can actually see the picture here. And that means when you take the picture, you have this clunk of the mirror going up and going down, and that of course moves the whole camera, and it also means something in terms of size inside the camera. So that is what mirrorless is, and that's the first thing to know, that the Leica M is mirrorless, and it always was. Then there is the other thing that is special about Leica, and that it is hold on to your chair and your table and your screen, it is manual focus. And that might frighten a lot of people because everything is out of focus these days. Everything is so out of focus that people actually believe that it is not possible to focus manually. And that's not true. It's always been manual focus. Leica makes other autofocus cameras like the SL and the Q, also the big medium format Leica S that is being renewed now. But a Leica M is manual focus, and what that means is that, of course, yeah, it's manual, but how does manual focus work? Well, manual focus works the way that I look through this viewfinder here, and everything is bright and clear. I cannot see through the lens. I'm looking out here, and it's like looking through a little window, and the size of the view is like 28 millimeters wide. So that's the total view, and then there's frame lines in the middle to show that, for example, now I have a 50mm on, so the frame lines show this is the actual frame. So I can actually see outside the frame, which something is amazing that you can see when somebody walks into it. I don't think it's a big selling point, but it is something that's how it is, and you get used to it. And sometimes it's an advantage that you can actually see. But the idea that you see everything clear changes the way that you photograph, because you make the photograph. And here you literally really make the photograph, because no matter what lens you put on with narrow depth of field or what you do, what you see is just the same as you see with the eyes. So you imagine the photograph that you're making. So that, I don't know, maybe you have to try it before you see how this is better than slice spread and everything else. But that's one of the advantages of the Leica, that you go on and photograph and you have an idea what you made, but you actually don't really, you haven't seen it yet, you don't really know. So when you come home and you put them in a computer, usually you're amazed of how great it is. So I look for this one, and then I have over here a little eye that puts a little square on top of the image that is highlighted. And when I want to measure the focus to something or the distance to something, I just go like this, and I can see now it's overlapping. And the great thing about manual focus is that it stays there. So if you imagine that you're doing street photography and you decide, I'm going to photograph this corner, I'm going to wait for somebody to come walk into the frame, then you set the focus, and you should also set the exposure and everything else, and you set the frame, and you can basically just hold the camera like this, and when somebody walks in, you just take 1, 2 or 3 photos, and the focus stayed there. So it's not like an autofocus camera that suddenly the focus went into a wall or a car or whatever, something else in the street. It stays where you put it. And especially when you work with narrow depth of field, which you have an looks like here is 0.95, it's really narrow depth of field, so you really have to control the focus, and that you can do. And you could say there's lots of funny stories with people that got the Leica, and then they think it's really difficult because the eyesight is not that good and all kinds of other things, and they think it's easier with autofocus. And I actually don't think it's easier, because now it's kind of like having a little spoiled baby or something, that now you have to keep an eye on the autofocus that it does what you tell it to do. With manual focus, you totally control it. And I recently had a guy in a workshop that he was a professional photographer, and he used Leica Q and Leica SL, and he never tried the Leica M. And he tries this, and he focuses, and he said, that's it. That's it. It's easy and it's logical, and that is actually how I feel it is, but it is very strange, of course, compared to when you come from other systems. But manual focus with a rangefinder is really easy, and it has the advantage that you really have to work for it. You have to make the photograph, and you do. Then the Leica M also have some funny things. So one thing is this is made of metal. It's really like a metal camera. Let's just do this for the fun of it. I mean, this is truly metal. This one is brass. Top plate, you can see it's get used. You can see the brass. And it has very few controls and buttons. It have here the shutter speed. It have here an ISO dial. And here you have the manual focus, and you have the aperture. You can actually see where the aperture is. And then because it's digital, it has a screen and a few buttons in the back. So this thing that you pick up a Leica and you feel this metal and you feel how solid it's made, this you can go to war with it and you can come back and it still will work. Even if you dropped it a few times and it got rain and everything, it still works. So this is made to actually last for many years. Then you have one of the funny things on the M10. You could say after the M10 came the M11 here. And if you look at this underneath, it looks different than other Leicas. So this have a battery that you pops out here, and here's the SD card in, and then have some show me your papers writing here that it comply with all kinds of rules. Here you have the M10 has a bottom plate. And what does that mean? Well, that means that you open it here and you take it off, and it is actually real metal. And then you have here the SD card and the battery. And this is exactly how Leica used to be for many years with film. So you would open this one, and then the film roll would be in here, you would change it. So you could say the thing that Leica hold on to having a bottom plate, even there's no film, is kind of ridiculous, but it also makes a lot of sense. It's very beautiful, of course, and also when you're used to it, it's just like that's how a Leica works. That you take off the film plate and you change the SD card and the battery, and you put it back on again, and. So that's one of the funny things apart from the rangefinder. So all in all, a Leica is a very different experience, and it's very back to basic, and it feels very much that you are put back in control. And you could say you feel like an artist, you feel like a creator, and you feel like you're doing something, almost something important with each photograph. Another great thing about the Leica is that it is compact. It is like, this is a tiny camera, this is a 50mm lens, 40 megapixel sensor. When you take a photo with this lens and this sensor, you capture everything, and it's beautiful and it's very accurate in colors and tones and everything. But the main thing that the camera is small, it's not just for the fun of it. A camera should be portable, it should be compact, it should be something you can take with you at all times. And I'm so extreme with it, I made my own camera straps here that's extremely nice. Some say they're nicer than if it was Hermes made it. It's very Hermes-like, the leather quality. And I make two lengths, and you can't change the length or anything. And the idea with the strap is that it's very simple. There's no adjustment, there's no nothing. It's just made to last maybe a lifetime if you're lucky. I won't guarantee that. And then they're made in two lengths, 125 and 145. And this is 125, and that means that it aligns with that it sits here, and it sits across here, so I don't drop the camera. It doesn't just hang on one shoulder and fall off. It sits here and it's ready. And I can push it to the back if I don't want it to be seen. I can take it to the front. I can take a picture and you just drop it again. So that is a portable camera, and of course, design-wise, that's a whole chapter in itself. The design of this is so classic and so beautiful, so it is a piece that people will think that this is very cute and beautiful. Some people know what it is, a lot of people don't know what it is, and they think that you're just carrying an old film camera. And even if you tell them, you certainly know it does have a screen, they don't believe that it's actually not a film camera. That's how the style of it is. But that's very important. You could say, if you can't or you won't carry a camera with you, you can't really make photos. It's very basic. And my slogan is always wear a camera. Then there is the real selling point with Leica, and that is that it is the best lenses in the world. There's just no doubt about it. And you can say, particularly for the M lenses, these lenses are, especially in the way that they're very compact, they sit very close to the sensor. So you can say, if you look at lens design, there's a lot of big lenses, and that doesn't really work if you want to carry the camera with you or if you want to work discreetly. So you have to have small lenses, and that just comes with the whole package of the Leica, that because of the design of the camera and everything, the lenses have to be small. So that means that the lenses have to be really smart to make high quality objects. They have the ideal to make the best lenses in the world, and they also have that they have this size limit. They have to do it within this size. So that gives some very interesting looks of lenses. And looks, I don't mean the lenses themselves, I mean the pictures that they take have really a fingerprint. So they're just perfect, they have soul. That's something you have to try for yourself to see. And of course you can't get a 200mm, you can actually, but the Leica M lenses goes from wide angle, I think it's 18mm to 135. That's what you can put on and work with the rangefinder. Then we get back to that is mirrorless, and what mirrorless means, yeah, it doesn't have a mirror, but mirrorless actually means that you can put on a digital view. So you can say, one thing is, yeah, you can use the screen here to look at your image like this, and then you can focus here. But even better is that you can put on an electronic viewfinder like this one, and now you see the picture in this one. So this is a different focusing experience, and now actually you get away from the advantage of the rangefinder that you see things as they are. You don't see the picture. Here you actually see the picture, you see the depth of field, and you see the focus is right. It slows down everything a little bit. What it does is that it enables you to actually, suddenly you can use this as a camera for anything. Now you can put on all kinds of lenses. And I have a few ones here. So one thing is that you can put on, and hold on, you can put on any Leica lens that was made since the 40s. Some of them are screw mount. That was a system before. This one has a bayonet like this one, so this one fits right in. But if you have screw mount, you can actually get a little adapter. It's like $40. You put on it, goes from screw mount to M mount. But all the lenses from 1940s, and that's a lot of very interesting lenses. And if you want to nerd out completely on it, you can go. Here's a book. The Leica Compendium, and this one has the history of cameras and lenses and everything. This is written by Erwin. It's not easy to get this book anymore. You can't get it from new. You can buy it on eBay and Amazon and secondhand bookstores. You can actually also go to my website. I'll put a link below the video, and you can download this one digitally. I also have on my website, I have a Leica Lens Compendium and a Leica Camera Compendium, so you can see the history of all this. So you can tell this is an area where you can nerd out completely. You can go with modern lenses like this one, that is like the best 50mm lens in the world. Perfect colors, perfect everything. Or you can go more classic lenses like this one is one. I'll just show it on this one because it is a little bit funny. So you can say back in the day, see if I can figure out where we put this one. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So this one is actually, I'll take off the lens shade. So this one is actually a lens where you have it like this. And that's how you would walk around with it. And then when you want to take photos, you pop it out and you lock it. And now you have a 50mm lens like the other one. And then when you're done, you put it back in again. So you can get stuff like that. There is in the very interesting and more expensive end of Leica, you have something here like the Noclux. This is a 50.95. It's the most magical lens that exists. It's also a little bit pricey. From new, it's $13,000. Worth every penny, but that's how it is. And here we have a 50 from 1956. That also fits straight on, and it's not even an expensive lens, and it's a magnificent lens that I used a lot, and you can see articles and pictures on my website about this lens. Then comes the thing that I actually wanted to get into with the mirrorless part, is that you have this electronic viewfinder, and one thing is you can photograph like this. You can also tilt it, so now you can look like this. And a very interesting thing is if you photograph people in a train or in the street or in a restaurant, as soon as you tilt it like this and you look here, even when you're just in front of them, they think you're not taking a picture of them. And that's not even that I wanted to tell a story about. But what you can do is now suddenly you can put on all kinds of other lenses. So you can take, for example, here is a Minolta 58 1.2 lens. Is not expensive. I think I paid maybe $400 for it or something like that. And suddenly you could put on a lens that comes from a completely different system. And you can take Nikon, you can take whatever old new lenses, you can find some exotic old Russian lenses and put on. And then now that you have the adapter on, you can actually also, that wouldn't fit for this one adapter, I just realized, but you can put on lenses like this. From the Leica R system was a system that at that time was said to have the best lenses in the world. And then suddenly you can take a lens like this 80 1.4 and you actually put it on this camera and you can use it. So there's unlimited possibilities for you to have fun with this camera. It's full frame, it's 24 or 40 megapixels, depending on which model you take. The reason for this review is simply that the M10 almost deserves a medal. This is a camera I have used throughout all the years, and I still use the M10R basically as my main camera. This is a camera that works and gets the job done. I've done also the M10 video masterclass, where I go through the different M10 models, how to set up the menu, how to focus the camera, and how to which SD card to choose, and all stuff like that, how to shoot low light and so on. So that's the M10 Masterclass, and I'll put a link below the video. There's one interesting thing or important thing with the Leica M10, and that is that because the lenses sit so close to the sensor, Leica actually had to make a full frame sensor with, you could say, on a sensor there's small optical eyes in front of the sensor, and normally just they point straight out, but a Leica, because the lens is so close to the sensor, that wouldn't work in the edges. So Leica actually had to make a special sensor with Kodak where the eyes or the small objects are tilted, like, so it picks up the light rays. And that also means that, yeah, you can take a Leica lens, you can put it on a Fuji or Olympus or whatever you can find, and that will still work, but it's not going to be the same image quality as on a Leica. And then there's also another detail, is I, for example, I tried some of the Fuji ones and put on Leica lenses, and you can say the Fuji is made usually for Fuji lenses, so that means there's a lot of firmware correction or like lens correction in the camera. So when you put on, even you put on a high quality lens like this, that is the best 50mm lens in the world, then you can have purple fringing and stuff because there's no correction in the camera. And you would say Fuji made a package where the Fuji camera, sensor and the Fuji lens works together, and there's firmware correction or there's correction on it. So that you could say optical is not as high end, but it works because they have the correction that goes in that package. So that's one reason you could say if you want to photograph with Leica lenses, you have to have a Leica. And I also say if you get a Leica body, a Leica camera, you should have Leica lenses. You don't really get the full experience. You can put on void liner and all kinds of other stuff, and it looks okay. When you put on a Leica lens, you put on just the best optics in the world. So why Leica M10? Well, there's different Leicas to choose from when we talk about digital Leicas. So there is the Leica M8 that came out originally in 2006, then came M8 II in 2008, and they're very nice cameras that look exactly like this, but they have crop sensor. They're very good for infrared light because for reasons of how the sensor is constructed, they're really good for infrared. So if you're into infrared, M8 and M8 II is the ones to get. Then in 2009 came the real first Leica M with full frame sensor, when Leica had cracked this thing, how do we tilt those small optic sensors on the sensor. So they did it with this one, and this is the M9, and you can see it looks exactly like, you can't hardly tell these from each other. And then came the M240, I don't have it here, I gave it to somebody to use it. Same stuff. This one is 18 megapixel, the M240 is 24 megapixel, and it has built-in video. Leica realized not a lot of the customers actually like this idea of video, or basically they didn't like that Leica added more features. And then came the M10, and that was like back to simplicity, and it got the ISO dial, and the first M10 came out in 2017. Then 2 years later came the M10P, and the difference between the M10 and M10P, you could say usually Leica makes a P model that's supposed to be professional, and then they take away the logo here. You can see, actually I don't have a dot on any of these, but here you have the red dot. So the M10P, and this is actually M10P, doesn't have the red dot, it has a screw here instead. And usually they update so the screen is more solid glass or something like this. But with this one, they actually made a camera where the sensor, or not the sensor, the shutter was soundless. They just damped the shutter. It's still a mechanical shutter that goes up and down and makes a click and so on. But with the M10P, they made it less sound. And then this one I have here is a special edition. They made a safari color, and this one came the year after the M10P came out. They made an M10P in safari. So I had all of them in all the colors. I have the M10 in black and silver, and I had the M10P in black and silver. And when the safari came, I got this one. And then Leica did something strange. Well, they did one of the things is not so strange, but then they made a Leica M10 monochrome. So that's a camera where the sensor only takes monochrome. And as they did this, the M10P and M10 is 24 megapixel sensor, but the M10 monochrome, they introduced a 40 megapixel sensor. So suddenly you could say one thing, you take a monochrome camera or sensor, you remove the Bayer filter. So that gives you kind of 4 times more details, because you don't have to deal with red, green and blue. You just have to deal with it, light or no light, or what gray tone is it. So it just captures light and not color. So that kind of 4x the detail level you can get. It's not really something you will see in a picture, but if you zoom in, you will see the details is extreme. And you can say if you take a landscape photo and there's a person walking down in a valley, you can actually zoom in and suddenly you can see the nose and the eyes, which you wouldn't be able to with a color sensor that you convert to black and white. Then right after came the M10R, and that is basically same as M10P, but with a 40 megapixel color sensor. And in my opinion, it doesn't really matter if you get the M10, M10P, Safari. You can also get the made a special edition in white and some other ones, or you get the M10R. You could say M10R, you have 40 megapixels. It's more sure to be future-proof and stuff like that. I'm not actually agreeing with that. I think 24 megapixel is perfect, and it's basically enough. And you can say then after M10R, let's just complete the story, came the M10 11 here in 2022, and this is 60 megapixel, and it changed, Leica changed a lot of things. They changed the bottom plate is gone. The rest of it here feels right. It has electronic shot also now, which have some advances, but it also have this strange thing that you turn on the camera and then after half a second or something, the shutter goes up and then it uses the sensor to read the light and preview and everything. And frankly, there have been a lot of, quite a few errors on the M11 that then they freeze and so on. My personal issue is not that mine never froze, and I actually used it a lot and I really beat it up and took it in the most strange places. Mine have been pretty stable. So I haven't really had any errors. What I do have is I have strange colors with too much magenta cast, and I have the light metering. I'm not happy with it, so I basically always underexposed 2/3. So you say this is the current, this is the new model, is the everything, and everything is proved. It's just not the same as the M10. So in that sense, you could say when people say Leica M10 is probably the last real Leica, they're probably right, but then you could say we're still waiting for the M12. It's going to be there in probably 2025, 2026, and I'm pretty sure the M12 is going to go back to look like the M10, meaning simplicity. And I mean, they're built to last forever, so that's not going to be the issue. It's just more the simplicity, how much or how little is between you and taking the photograph. And that is the beauty of the M system, that there is literally nothing, that you're really in control. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, I want to get into Leica, which Leica should I get? There is different choices, and it's not like the M10 is the only one that works. The M8 I mentioned is great. It's actually a really great camera, and it is a Leica and everything, and it's just crop sensor, which in some cases could actually be an advantage because it brings you closer, and it's great for infrared. Then you have the M9, is a real classic. This is a super charming camera. And I love it, and a lot of people love it, and will never let go of it, or they have 2 of them just to make sure they always have one. You could say in daily use, it is a cute camera to use. It's a little, slows you down like a film camera because everything is just slower. The screen on the back is small and everything compared to how things are today. So you really have to imagine how the photo is going to look. Even when you look at the screen, you actually don't see anything that looks like when you bring it to the computer. Then came the M240, which is actually also a really good camera. And you can say, I mean, if you look at second-hand prices, M9 is around maybe $3,000. M240 is around $3,000. And that is a miracle in itself. You could say the M9 cost $5,500 when it came out in 2009, and it still cost $3,000, sometimes $3,500, $4,000 second-hand. So it gives you an idea that if you had bought it from new, you could use it almost forever, and it wouldn't cost you a dime almost. So M240 is also a great deal. One of the things that happened also with the M10 came out, and the M10 is maybe $4,500, $5,000 second-hand. One of the things that happened when the M10 came out was that the body became slimmer. That's one thing people have been requesting. Here's the M9 compared to M10 and M9 compared. And it's something people have been requesting for years, that they want Leica camera to be as slim as a film camera. It's not exactly as slim yet, but it's getting there, and maybe one day we'll get a Leica M9 that is exactly as slim. In daily use, it's not really something you think about. It's just more, you could say, if you were used to Leica M film cameras, and then you get a digital, you can feel that it's clunkier, it's different. You have the screen, and there's things added that wasn't in a film camera. But the M10 here is, the great thing about the M10 is that it has been in use since 2017, and this literally just keep working. You don't have any errors in it. It is very, very Leica all the way through. You can say, of course, it's not a film camera, but it's really damn close to being, to having the feel of a film camera. And you can say that is the essence of this. And it's, you can say, if you are looking for a camera with the latest and greatest of autofocus system, and it has face recognition, it can do this and that, it can GPS, and it can transfer files and everything, then I think you shouldn't even be looking at Leica, at least not this one. You can go look at SL, maybe they will do it for you, or the Leica Q is an amazing little camera. It's almost like an iPhone on steroids, but this is the Leica M, and the idea with the Leica M is the same as it always was. And if we go back, why, I don't even think I can sum up why is the M so great, but you could say if we go back to 1925, in years before the first Leica came out in 1925, it was launched then, but for almost something like 10, 15 years, Oskar Barnack, who invented the Leica M or designed it, he loved photography, but he loved even more making films. And he was an inventor, and he got hired by Leica because Leica, who owned the factory, could see this guy is he's really good. So one of the things, there's different stories, but the correct story in my opinion is that Oskar Barnack was really into film, and that meant that he would make metal film cameras, which was very unusual at that time. Everything was wood. Still cameras were big wooden boxes you put on a tripod, and you should almost have a chemical degree to figure out how does this film plate and film work with developing and everything. But one of the things you have to do with film is, like, you buy this big film roll, and now you're gonna film a scene or several scenes, and the chemistry was different on those film rolls you bought. So Oskar Barnack invented this little camera where you could put in a roll of film so you buy this big roll of film stock, and you take a little snippet out, you put it in a camera like this, and you take some photos of it with it, and then you develop it, and you see, okay, this one needs to be adjusted. So it's basically a test of film stock to see how does this film stock work. And in the process, of course, he found out that actually the film stock was so high quality at that point, or was increasing in quality and definition. And also the Leica factory was known for the perfect optics. So you combine this thing, you take really good optics, and you have film stock that can actually capture details. So he made this daring he got this daring idea that you can actually, instead of having a big negative like this or a glass plate, you can actually have a little negative like this, and it's going to be the same. And that makes the camera much smaller, and suddenly it's portable. You don't have to drag around a tripod and everything. And then also at the same time, he invented an enlarger, so that means it almost the reverse of a camera, that now you take the small negative, you put it up here, and there's light behind objects, and you blow it down on a piece of photo paper, and now you can make a big print, whereas the only way to make a big print before was to have a big camera. So if you imagine that this goes on for 10-15 years, Barnack and lights and things is happening in the world, and that leads up to that Leica decide, let's put in this camera into production because this is a great idea, and suddenly it's portable, it's simple, it's high quality, it's high enough quality, and it's so simple that even women and children and everybody can use this. You don't have to have a chemical degree or a degree in chemistry to figure out to take a photograph. And that's basically the beginning of the Leica, and you say coincidence, need, and whatever is what brought about this concept that have been so great that it has been existing since 1925. And basically you could say you have any Leica freak would agree that the more original and the more close to the original idea it is, the better it is. So all this with electronic shutter, and we can do this and that kind of introduced a little bit in the M11. And that's not really what we want. And we don't want all the buttons that you see on a Fuji camera. I mean, it's like you take the body anywhere and you touch some FN button or some little wheel that does something that you didn't ask the camera to do. Simplicity is better, and that is what the Leica is. And you could say the M10 is the one Leica M digital that have really worked, and it's been tested through so many years. And personally, I've used them all over the world for anything in any condition, and I actually haven't had any one that broke down, the sensor stopped working, anything. They just keep shooting. That's about what I want to say today. I mean, let me summarize now. Pretend this is a review. So this is a mirrorless camera. It is 24 megapixel in this one in color, and then you have 40 megapixel here you can get in color, or you can get the M10 monochrome, that is 40 megapixel monochrome, meaning black and white sensor. These days is almost there's nothing more to say about it. As I said, second-hand price for these are around, I would say, if you're lucky, you find one for 3.5, but this is like 4,000-5,000. If you go special models, this is actually a special model. Is in black paint. So this is still very sought after, and it's hard to find it new, I would say that. And even second-hand, they tend to actually cost more than they cost originally. Still okay for Leica. Let's go back to M240 or M9 and pick up a Leica for around 3,000, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, or M8 you can get for 2.5, 2,000, 3,000. And then you are into Leica, and you can say compared, a new Leica M11 is 9,300, I think, currently. So that is a jump, and I would say you actually wouldn't really feel, if you took M11 or you took M10, you wouldn't feel a big difference. But it's all up to you. That's all I had to say. I will say thank you for watching, and remember, till I see you next time, to always wear a camera.